I want to hear about the Dark Elves and the rocket ships.
All right. Well, this was Curtis Yarvin's talk, um, who, if I'm correct, there was a rumor going around right before his talk that he was pretty much just going to wing it, which says something about his skill because it was easily one of the most entertaining and captivating talks of the event. I don't know what you guys think of it.
Yeah, it was one of the best. I think his long experience in public speaking is really shining through. I mean, he can really. You realize that you remember in the beginning he was really like throwing out a couple of feelers to see how people would react, and then he kind of styled the talk to people's reactions. So he was very skilled.
Yeah, he did a very good job.
This is similar to other people. I think Jordan Peterson can do some of the same things, where he just sort of goes through like the greatest hits, basically, of his career, and then tries to finish on kind of a point where he synthesizes into something that's relevant to the topic at hand, or something that's a little bit new. And of course, it gives a lot of energy when you're just kind of feeling out the crowd and making jokes and asking questions, interacting, and so on. This is one of the talks that I laughed the most, I think, because he was able to get in so many like funny stories and jokes and so on. The question and answer stuff was really good as well. We sort of run out of time. I wanted to ask him multiple questions. I think other people would as well. I think if they just let it go on, we'd probably be going for like 3 or 4 hours just doing Q&As on this.
Exactly. There was a very funny moment in his talk, which I think he, from a Californian perspective, thought would go down better than it did, where he said, "Raise your hand if you've ever been in a fight," and pretty much the entire room put up their hand.
Yeah, he said if you ever been in a fight in adult age, so after you were a teenager, and he expected like 2 people or something, like half the room.
Because of course, if he did this in California, it would be like 2 people out of a room of 100. But you're in England, and there's a couple of Scandies here, so he got like 80% of the people to raise their hand, and he had to sort of like realign himself and be like, "Well, my point still stands, though." And the rocket ship part, I think, was one of the more important parts of it. It shined through as we talked about how his goal is a lot more focus on the mouth, etc., of the or the cathedral part of the octopus, and the culture aspect of it. But the most important thing is that he basically went up there and spent 40 minutes telling us, get it right. You only get one shot at this. And that's why it's rocket ships. He said if you want to launch a rocket into space, you got to get it into space. You can't get it 99% of the way there. It's gotta be done right. It's got to be engineered well in advance, and you have to know what you're doing the day you're doing it. And it's something that people don't really think about, because in the day-to-day operations, it's mostly it can be a bit sort of like just lashing out against the left or unfocused reaction, etc. But we have to remember that if we're building a community, we have to build it with a goal, and everybody has to be on board with that. And if half of the community decides that today's the day we're gonna march on the Capitol, it's not gonna work out if not everyone's on board.
Like in my limited imagination, I mean, I like to listen to Moldbug. I really enjoy some of his perspectives, but I guess there's just something like in my personality and temperament where I have a bit of an issue with this rocket ship thing, because he is very much someone who emphasizes soft power, right? This sort of cultural hegemony, exuding confidence, being interesting. Because he uses metaphors from like PUA stuff, like being alpha and trying to neg and use these sort of tricks and stuff to really present yourself as like the superior alternative and project confidence. And be basically the interesting alternative, and that's how you're a threat to the system, is by actually being cooler, and staying authentic and so on. But my question is then, like, how does this work with the kind of rocket ship analogy? Because the only way that I can understand, like, this kind of like, okay, this is just going to happen at one time if the right wing is going to take power. That cannot happen gradually. That can only happen it's like this kind of burst of energy, which, I mean, what is that burst going to be if it's only going to be soft power? That has to be a kind of coup or some type of military action, in a sense, where things are turned turned around militarily. But I don't think that's what he is advocating for, what he is trying to say. So I don't know if any of you have thought about that part of it.
Well, I have commented, and I did comment on the event, that his strategy of, this weird martial arts things that he wants to do to make his opponent actually do what he wants or something is a risky strategy. Which is why my takeaway was more the rocket ship, because I don't see the regime allowing the cool to be reactionary right wing. The Zoomers can meme about what was his quote? Getting banned from Roblox for harassing minorities. But it's coached in like a million layers of irony, and they don't have any positive vision. Like, how is being mean to people on Roblox gonna lead you to any sort of stable, real, true right wing form of life, right?
Well, I watched the Distributist yesterday, right, on his stream, and he is very influenced by Moldbug. He comes from the same area, and I didn't realize, like, until I listened to Moldbug, how much influence Dave has actually taken from him. But like, the Distributist was talking about subcultures, and say like the new left, and how, like, all of these leftist subcultures that have become mainstream now started off as like these kind of smaller things that just got absorbed. And I mean, this is the thing that they were supposed to be revolutions, essentially. Like you said, like the punk rock scene was supposed to be a revolution. I think, like this sort of gay scene was supposed to be a revolution, but they just got absorbed into the system and became a part of it. But that's how I see, in a sense, what we could do with, like, the article of what's his name, Pedro Gonzalez or something. He talked about how the dissident right is now being absorbed by the system. But that's not a rocket ship, right? That's sort of just like a slow drip of producing cool cultures that is going to become a part of the dialectic over time, and that will create openings for us.
That's my big sort of gripe with it. You're fighting an enemy. I'm going to paraphrase from a tweet, so it's not quite off the top of my head, but you're fighting an enemy whose greatest strength is being able to suck your energy and sort of turn it back on you. And your strategy is to, like, run one by one and attack him, right? I mean, it's just not going to work, is it? You're playing into what they're best at.
I think there is certain times when you look at a regime, like look at the USSR. The USSR was breaking down through the 80s. Nobody expected it to collapse. One day, the elite just had enough. They gave up, right? That at that point, you can take off in the rocket suit.
Sure. But just being cool isn't going to be enough,
No, you need to be prepared with the institutions ready to take over, right?
Yeah, even though it's not explicitly military, you have to be ready to take over, whatever that means.
Yeah, you need to have institutes of economics, healthcare, everything you can imagine, different solutions to how to deal with it, and then we'll take the rocket ship from there, right?
Exactly.
In that case, it makes more sense to me.
Well, I mean, you can look at it in both ways. But that's also what makes Yarvin interesting, is that he's sort of able to hold both of these thoughts in his head at the same time, and try to tell you about it. So it was a very good talk, very entertaining. and he did great on other panels as well. Any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's some things that came up in the Q&A that I was thinking about. I mean, he was asked, I think, by one of the women in the who was seated in the audience about raising children and how you want to approach raising children from like this based perspective. And the Moldbug answer is basically to not talk to them about politics at all, and then to just wait for the day that they will rebel against the system, just so you can be there and support them in their rebellion. Which to me is that it could probably make sense within the frame of like being, you know, a Jew living in California, basically, which he is. And he even mentioned like, my children have my Jewish revolutionary spirit. But
Yeah, and they
like,
go to Ivy League schools.
yes, but like from the
So-
perspective of the people that I've interacted with and the families that I interacted with and what we've seen happening in the last 2 years in the schools and so on, like, you know, the people who live in Scandinavia or the Anglos, they're not just going to activate some kind of revolutionary spirit. That is just, you can't just wait for that to happen. I actually think this is like probably, you know, maybe it's good advice for like Jewish California people. I think it's actually pretty
but
bad
for someone
advice
like me, where they're going to put my kids
Yeah.
on hormone blockers and there's nothing I can do, like, what am I going to, like, I get arrested if I try to take it away from them, right?
Yeah, I mean, with the last 2 years with the lockdowns and so on, you've seen people, you know, these kids in the Norwegian schools, they've just been kind of stepped on, right? They've all of their rights have sort of been taken away from them, and they're just being they wear masks. They have to wear masks all the time. They can only like assemble in cliques of 2 or 3, and they have to walk on each side of the tape and so on. They're like, there's no like revolutionary spirit that's been spawned from that at all. It's just kind of reinforcing the existing agenda. That's sort of what I
and
see.
that's and that's why the Roblox thing is a bit of a meme, right? Because it's not real revolutionary spirit. It's just sort of like this, well, at least I can still shit post online, right?
I think even the Roblox thing is a little bit outside of their comfort zone. I think they just need new software to run on, basically, because they will just trust the system and reinforce the system. That's kind of what I'm
Now,
seeing.
that being said,
So,
I'm speaking as a member of the Harry Potter generation. You know, I'm probably not going to be the one that's going to make this happen, but I'd like to be ready with the answers when the generation that will comes around, right?
yeah, and that's one of the things he mentioned, like in the talk as well, where he said that the Zoomers had revolutionary potential because of their cynicism. That's really like Generation X cynicism just amped up to 11, whereas our generations, the millennials, are kind of hopeless because we're fed on more of this Harry Potter propaganda, and we never got around to asking him exactly what the millennials can do about it.
No, I tried to get a hold of him afterwards, but then I got drunk and I forgot about it.